Hey everyone, Itai Manero here, and in this video I'm going to show you how to paint an apple with oils in Procreate, so let's jump right into it. In order to achieve this, I'm going to be using my thick paint brush set for Procreate. You can find it along with a free mini version for you to try out on my Gumroad page through the link in the top right corner of this video or in the description below. The photo we are going to use as reference is this one by Studio Bloom, and we will be focusing on this apple here specifically. You can also find a link to download this picture in the description of this video. This is going to be a tutorial aimed at beginners. To make things easier, the first thing I'm going to recommend is to limit the amount of brushes you use in your paintings. This will allow you to get to know the brushes little by little and find ways you can use them in combination with each other. For today's exercise, we are going to be using the following 6 brushes you can find in the full version of this set. Super Wet Flat Brush will allow us to sketch our subject and also paint some precise brush strokes. We will be using Brush Strokes Texture 2 to add some touches of realistic oil brush strokes. Dry Oil Marks will come in handy to blend colors and get rid of some hard edges. Thick Paint 1 will help us with adding white color spots. Messy Canvas Roll is a great brush to paint the subject in a rough way during the first steps. And we will be using Smooth Squared Brush to refine the subject and paint the main final brush strokes. We are going to be working on an 8.5 by 8.5 inches canvas at 300 dpi. Instead of starting with a white background, we are going to import one of the included oil color-based textures. Looking at the reference, I feel the one that will fit the most is the texture called Spicy Orange. We will make sure that the magnetics option in the snapping feature is turned on, and then we will click the Fit to Canvas button to expand this texture to fill the whole canvas. I'm going to name this layer Oil Color Base. Then on top of this one, I'm creating a new layer and naming it Sketch. In this layer, and using the Super Wet Flat Brush and a dark brown color, I'm going to start sketching the apple. Since it is such a round object, we can take advantage of the Quick Shape feature in Procreate. Draw a rough circle and hold the pen down, touching the screen until Quick Shape gets triggered. Then click on the circle option. You can resize and place this circle to your liking. Notice that I'm leaving enough space in the right of the canvas for the shadow the apple is projecting on the surface. Now, because I'm not interested on painting a perfectly round apple, I'm going to use the circle as a mere guide to draw my more realistically shaped apple. I'm also drawing a smaller circle to mark where the cavity and the stem are going to be. I'm marking the shadow the stem is projecting on the apple as well. The final part of the sketch is to roughly mark where the projected shadow on the surface is going to be placed. Notice that I take my time to adjust it until I feel it is right. With the sketch finished, I'm going to create a new layer just below it, name it Painting Layer, and switch to the Thick Paint 1 brush. By holding one finger on the screen over the background, I'm picking up its orange color, and then changing it slightly in the color wheel to get a slightly darker tone. The idea is to give the background a little bit of a color variation in some areas surrounding the apple so that it doesn't look so flat. I'm also going a bit darker to paint the projected shadow from the apple. Notice that I'm allowing myself to be sloppy. At this stage we don't need refined details. We only care about the general color spots. We'll refine things later. I've darkened the shadow area in the left and bottom parts where the apple is making contact with the surface, where it's more difficult for the light to reach. I continue to add a few more color variation spots in other places of the background to make it look richer in values. Then I select the same Thick Paint 1 brush with the Smudge tool, and I'm going to use this brush to blend those color spots a little bit with each other. Try not to blend everything away too much. Leaving a few spots rougher will make the whole thing look more painterly realistic. Now it's time to switch to the Messy Canvas Roll brush. With this one, we are going to paint a few basic colors in the apple in a very loose way. Try keeping a fairly medium size of the brush, not too small, not too big, so that we can add a few different colors but not go too much into detail. We want to focus on painting a dark green for the shadow areas, a medium green for the midtones, and a light green with a slight tint of yellow for the light areas. We also want to add the reflective light from the orange surface on the right and bottom parts of the apple. Paint with broad strokes and don't worry about being accurate. We can also give a couple of color touches to the stem. With the general colors and values in place, I like to merge my sketch and painting layers and continue painting in a single layer so that we slowly start covering the lines from the sketch until they almost disappear entirely by the end. From here we can continue adding a few other strokes, trying to incorporate slight variations from the colors that are already in the apple. Have a look at the reference and notice what other subtle colors you can spot. For example, I see a little bit of brown in the shadow area in the right part of the apple, just before the orange that's reflecting from the table. There is many different greens in the apple. Some are more yellow, some others are more blue. This process of adding variations of colors in the subject will make the final painting look way more rich and interesting. Now it's a good moment to use the dry oil marks brush to blend some of those hard edges away. Again, we don't want to smooth the whole thing too much. It's important to leave some of those hard edges in the painting because they give character and structure to the piece. Which edges to blend and which ones to leave is pretty much an aesthetic choice and something you can only learn by practicing. At this stage we want to start being more precise with our strokes, so we'll switch to the smooth squared brush. With this brush we start painting colors and details to define some of the areas further. For example, I define the darker part of the shadow where the apple is making contact with the surface. I'm also taking the time to add more detail to the cavity around the stem, adding darker green strokes, while at the same time following the direction of the form to help the eye of the viewer understand the shape. Notice that at any moment we can switch to the smudge tool with the dry oil marks brush to blend the strokes anytime we need, and then continue working with the other brush. Generally we want the mid-tone and light areas to be more detailed, and leave the shadow areas more undefined, because that's how our eyes perceive reality, so it's a good thing to do the same in our paintings. You can see how I'm dedicating more time to add more strokes and details in the mid-tone areas right now, and slowly building the transitions between the darks and the mid-tones. I'm also looking at the reference at all times, and I start planning where the highlights are going to be by painting the light areas with a muted yellow color. To paint the highlights a bit more gracefully, I'm going to switch to the super wet flat brush, and notice how I don't go directly to painting with white. I first use that same muted yellow to paint a couple of hard edge strokes, and then with a lighter muted yellow, I paint the final little highlights. We don't need to go full white, because in contrast with the other colors, this looks already like a realistic highlight. Using a 100% white would make the thing look very weird, because in reality we almost never see pure white or pure black. I also added a couple of touches of light green around the edge of the apple, and used the same brush with the smudge tool to add a bit more texture. With the painting almost finished, it's a great time to add a bit of extra texture that will make our digital oil painting look more like a real oil painting. In order to achieve this, we are going to use the Brush Strokes Texture 2 brush with the painting tool. The process here is to hold our finger on the screen, to color pick from different parts from our painting, and then pressing very slightly with the Apple Pencil. We'll add these super cool and realistic brush strokes, passing over from one area to another. I also like to use the messy canvas roll on the background for some extra texture and refining a little bit the edges of the subject. And this is the final result. I really hope you liked this video. If you use my brushes and post your art on social media, feel free to use the hashtag #ManeroBrushes so that I can see what you create. I will be extremely happy to share your creations with my audience. Don't forget to subscribe for more art-related videos and give me a thumbs up. Also, make sure to check out my Gumroad page, where you will find my thick paint brush set for Procreate, and many other sets and freebies that I have available. I'm sure something will suit your artistic needs. All the links are in the description below. Okay, thank you for watching. See you next time.